Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Parishscope. This is the podcast newsletter of St. John's Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Chris Sansom.
And I'm Casey Dreamus. I'm the creative worship director at Our Savior Lutheran in Washington.
Yeah. So how have things been going? I mean, I haven't talked to you in like a week or so.
Yeah.
And really, even in our last podcast, I don't think I really asked you like how things are going. So
things are going good. You know, we're just, we're moving along. And the one thing that, you know, as this could be church chatter for where I'm at right now, but one of the things that actually is really exciting is that I've been having people who are at St. John's who watch, they would probably remember Cody Fry, who would play drums on occasion. He's a friend of mine from Washington, and so he's been playing for me at Our Savior because it's kind of right down the road for him. And
cool.
he pulled me aside this week and said, "I got to talk to you in private." I was like, "Okay, what's going on?" And he said, "Well, I started going to this church with like a friend and blah blah," and I'm like, "Great."
Yeah.
And so he felt, I think he felt like, oh, I think he's going to be upset that I I'm going to start going to this church. And I'm like, no, that's wonderful. I want you to go. So,
right.
So, that's, I would say is that's a great problem to have to me.
Yeah.
You know, that he feels led to go somewhere and to join a church and start kind of diving a little deeper into that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But yeah, things are going really good. I mean, I'm excited to see where things are going. You know, we have VBS. I'm starting to put stuff together for that, for the VBS and things.
Okay.
So that'll be fun. They do theirs though in like July. So
yeah. Well,
like
they better
July.
not compete with us.
Yeah. Yeah. So they do theirs a lot later, but it'll be fun. You know, we're getting ready. And my wife's getting ready for the end of school. She's a teacher, so we're
good times. Good times.
Yeah, getting ready for that. So things are going pretty good. How about yourself?
You know, things are going okay. Got the big rush. You know, confirmation, first communion. So all the big events are done, and so now it's like I'm not. You know, now's the time whenever I get to relax a little bit, but I also get a plan. You know, going to try to plan as much as I can anyway for next year and see how things go and all that kind of fun and exciting stuff. Yeah. So, so exciting. Yeah. I thought for my news story today that one of the, you know, I mean, honestly, again, I mean, I feel like, and this is what the news cycle does. It's the same stuff over and over and over again. Yeah, they do. And like, there's some nuance here and some nuance there, but honestly, like, a lot of the news right now, you know, trial of Donald Trump, the Palestine, you know, campus stuff and, you know, what's going on in Israel, Palestine and yada, yada, yada. But so I wanted to go a little bit different. And, you know, again, I've been trying to do that. But I thought, you know, this past Sunday was Mother's Day. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we've talked a little bit about like the transgender stuff. We've talked a little bit about, you know, biology and all this kind of fun and exciting stuff. But one of the things I wanted to actually talk about was, you know, and this is kind of a similar topic, but not quite the same. And that was, I just want to talk a little bit about, you know, the view, the worldview that we have when it comes to motherhood and how that has changed. Mm-hmm. Because I do think, you know, so in the prayers this past Sunday, you know, I prayed for mothers, and then I also prayed for you know, future mothers, and I also prayed for those that wanted to be mothers but were never able to be mothers. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I mean, I remember we used to have a professor at seminary who used to highlight that a lot, and he's like, you know, there's a lot of people that really would love to be mothers, but, you know, for one reason or another, they cannot be. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we better not forget those. And, you know, and Mother's Day can be very hard for them because they wanted to be mothers. They wanted to celebrate. And then like, it feels like that holiday is just like a slap in the face because they were never really able to get that. And I think that's something that's, you know, oftentimes overlooked. We don't really talk about stuff like that because a lot of our younger generation look at children as a hindrance.
Yeah. And
they look at motherhood almost like a hindrance. And I think that view is very dangerous. And it's also it kind of also brings to light the fact that it's a little hard to understand how, you know, if that's your view, then how do you understand the Bible when it talks about, you know, having arrows in your quiver and, the blessings of motherhood and all this kind of stuff. It's like the Bible actually talks quite a bit about the blessings of motherhood, and yet in a cultural aspect, it's kind of downplaced a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, there's kind of my topic of choice.
Yeah.
And so we're going to start that off by going, did you do anything fun for Mother's Day?
We, I got, it's important to me and to Taylor, both my wife, that, I have a son, now I have two sons, but one's still in, can't really do anything yet. Mm-hmm. And so we always make sure to get flowers, and I want him to pick them out.
Yeah.
Because I want him to know, you get flowers for mom, or for, so we got flowers on Friday because I didn't know whenever I have a hard time getting out of the house, mm-hmm. especially on the weekends. I can't really just run out to get something at this point. So we did that. And then we, of course we had church on Sunday. And we actually went Saturday. We, went over and, had dinner with my mom and my dad.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to, because my dad was going to surprise his mom, his siblings. One of them still lives here in town. The other one lives in Michigan.
Sure.
And then they did a lot of fostering kids. So one of their sisters, who's adopted, she came up and they all surprised my grandma with just a day with her and her kids. So mm-hmm. So they did that. So Sunday we didn't really see my mom because they were all doing that. So that's why we hung out with her Saturday. And then Sunday we went to Pizza Ranch because that's where my wife wanted to go.
Got to go to Pizza Ranch.
Got to go to Pizza Ranch.
It's been a while since I've been to Pizza Ranch.
Yeah. I will tell you, prices, whew,
yeah,
they are high. Buffets used to be you went because it was a great deal. And now I don't think I could possibly eat enough to make up for the cost that it is to eat there.
But I mean, if you go out, and I don't really go out very much, and part of it is because of the rapid inflation of all of that. But I mean, I forget where I was or what I was doing the other day, but I went out to eat and it was I hardly got anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at my bill and I was like, there was a time when I could have gotten all of this for $40 and it was $70.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is insane. And again,
it's
part of that is because I just don't go out very much,
mm-hmm.
And so that's a part of it too. Cause you get that sticker shock, whenever you don't see it, right. you weren't really going out to eat when it was slowly progressing up.
Yeah.
Now you're just going every now and again. You're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, yeah, I don't know. It's funny though.
Yeah.
It's just been crazy. Every time I go anywhere, I feel like I'm just shocked by how much I'm spending. And I'm like, geez, Louise.
Yeah.
But so we went to Pizza Ranch. That was nice. And then we came home and we actually just kind of we cleaned up the house quite a bit because we don't clean enough as much as we should. And so that was nice.
And nobody does.
Felt good to have stuff clean in the house. And so that was mostly our weekend, but it was a good time.
Right on. Well, again, it's one of those things you think about this, and this is one of those things that I also, whenever you talk about one of the programs that I really love, and I always tell people I love the idea of the program. I love the setup of the program. The materials are really dated though. And that's the Faith Legacy stuff. And one of the things I really like about Faith Legacy, and this is kind of one of the things that that you're doing,
mm-hmm.
is that the Faith Legacy says, okay, your kids are itty bitty, they're small. What are you doing, that's going to emphasize their faith, or, some of the thoughts that they believe in? And we as a culture, I shouldn't even say, I don't even know if it's a culture thing, if it's just a normal thing, but a lot of parents are just they're swamped and they get swamped. And I mean, more power to them. I get it. But because of that, they end up in this reactionary, just got to keep my head above water, mm-hmm. and they never stop and think about okay, my child's just a baby, but he also needs to have faith, You know, in this case, we're talking about motherhood. You know, they also need to have a positive outlook on mothers. They need to have, you know, a way that they're celebrating mothers, you know, and motherhood and all that entails. And, you know, you got to start doing that even when they're really little, you know, because it is important, just like our faith is important.
Right.
You know, and again, that's one of the things, like, you know, like, okay, so you have a 1-year-old. Are you reading them Bible stories? Well, I mean, you should be, you know. And if you're not, I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't beat yourself up. If you're not, and you're listening to this and you're going, well, now I'm really done messed up. No, you don't. There's always time. Like, just start now. But the point of the matter is actually think about how you want to teach your faith to your kids, and start now, because, you know, when they're 15 years old and in high school, it's not. Again, I don't want to say, oh, it's too late. It's never too late to start, but you're going to have a lot better luck, I guess, is to say, when they're younger rather than when they get older.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, it's been, I think we talked about this, I don't know, a while back about.
Yeah, we did a little bit. Yeah.
And actually the move for us was kind of helpful in a way, because we got here and we didn't have internet for a few weeks.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of we pulled out this thing of kids movies that we had that we really never used. And a lot of them were like VeggieTales.
Yeah.
And so my kids started watching VeggieTales, and now they're really getting into that. And they're starting to, you know, they'll start to repeat the stories a little bit, which is nice. And then, of course, you know, we started having them go to Sunday school. So now they're getting into that. And so now it's just nice because they bring it up more often. I don't know if I told you this or not, so tell me if I did, but we pulled out, we have like a children's Bible storybook that's, you know, a lot of pictures, you know, very colorful for kids. And the very first time we pulled it out, Taylor was reading to my son. He turned the page, he cut his finger.
Uh-oh.
And I mean, when I say it blew up like a balloon, I don't know what happened, but it was like a paper cut. And we had to go, like a couple days later, we had to go to the prompt care, and he had to get antibiotics.
Oh my goodness.
Because his finger, I don't know, it was getting really gross. I don't know what was going on with it. And it like wasn't healing. So that was the first time we like cracked open a children's Bible. And he cut himself. It was really bad, but I think it's good. I mean, getting
the next time you open up the Bible, you're gonna have to bring brownies or something. You gotta make it a positive experience, you know.
But it's been good. It's been nice, and like things like VBS and, you know, getting them involved. I'm excited because my oldest son he's able to participate in that now. So I'm excited that he's at the age he can start doing those things, and, you know, just trying to get him involved in that world more and more and more. So, yeah.
Oh, that's great. But and again, I realize that, like, I've tied two topics together now.
Yeah.
But I do think that they are worthy. Like, you know, again, you know, mothers, I think, are something that really should be celebrated. Again, we don't want to ignore those people that, you know, for whatever reason, you know, couldn't have children or can't have children. We don't want to ignore them. We don't want to neglect them. But at the same time, I do believe that mothers should have a day. And I'm really glad that we still have that. Yeah. I know that there's been some debates recently, of course, to have a birthing person's day.
A birthing person? Okay.
Well, you know, can't do women or, you know, all that stuff. So yes, a birthing person.
That'll be a great greet. That'll be a good Hallmark card. Like, happy genetic, or, you know, I don't know, biological birth parent day. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Oh man, that's just nuts. That's just crazy. But yeah, I think it is good. I didn't know that Mother's Day was under such fire. But
I did. Again, I heard this. I didn't know it was that either.
Yeah.
But then I read something on it the other day, and I was like, "Are you serious?" And you know how it is. Like, you know, a lot of that stuff's clickbait. You know, so you click on it, you go, "Really?" You know, and it's meant to stir you up, and it's like, meant to.
Mother's Day was established. They tell you the history of Mother's Day first, and then at the end, it's like, and some people want to get rid of it. You're like, oh, that was a great article.
That's just like a recipe. Have you ever looked at recipe up online?
I hate it.
Like, man, give me back Betty Crocker. You know what I mean?
Just give me
Betty Crocker didn't give me her whole life story. You know, in 1872, my family landed over here. 5 hours later, and that's how you make a biscuit.
Yeah.
You're just like going, what?
Yeah. It's crazy. See, now for me, I will say that Mother's Day is the end of a very long, what I feel like is a marathon for me, because we have Christmas. Then, by the time I get my head on straight after that whole season, it's Valentine's Day.
Yep.
And then in March is my wife's birthday. So then I have her birthday. And then we have Mother's Day. And I'm like, by the time Mother's Day rolls around, I don't have any idea what else I could possibly get her at this point. Because I've just gone through, like, this is the fourth holiday. And I'm not complaining that she shouldn't have a day. I just don't know what to do at this point. I'm like, I don't know. I've done all the tricks. I've done all the things. I don't know what else to do. So that's my only tough thing. Like, can we space it out a little bit?
So tough.
So, of course, I mean, that's just my thought. I'm just thinking, celebrate like July or something, But
No, it's got to be May. Flowers.
May flowers. Yes.
Flowers. You got to have the May flowers.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
That's right. Well, is there anything?
I thought there was something else I was going to say, but now I can't think of what it was.
No.
Isn't that just terrible? That's just terrible. Here I am sitting here forgetting stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's late for us.
It's late.
It's late at
it's
night.
late.
We're just
It's
trying
late.
to get through. We're just trying to get.
We're just trying to trudge through.
Yeah. Well, if we want to move on, we can
Yeah,
move on.
yeah. I know you got questions.
I have a question.
All right.
Because I know partially this, and this is probably now if there was a dumbest question of the "There's no dumb questions" segment, this might be the one, because I know it's a Lutheran podcast, but I don't think we've ever actually talked about this, and I don't know if what I sort of know is at all true or really like a good enough example. So the question I had is, how was the Lutheran Church established? Because it came out of the Catholic Church. Is that correct?
Okay.
See now, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Wow.
No, it's actually a really good question, because there's a lot of now, as you know, I'm a history guy. Love history, right? Love history. So I'll give you like the big rundown.
Okay.
Like the real big rundown.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm going to give you way more history than you ever dreamed of having.
That's okay. We got time. We went through that first segment pretty quick. So we got some time.
Whenever you say like, hey, my big story for today is Mother's Day, like, there's only so much you can really bring to the table and talk about,
right.
To say basically, yes, we should celebrate Mother's Day, so yeah, we have some extra time, but I'm going to give you, I'm actually going to start in the most unexpected way.
Okay.
Because I'm going to start in 1348.
Oh, no.
Now, most people would actually expect me to start in like the 1500s, late 1400s at the least. But
I would have no idea where to start. So that's
1348. Something unique happened in Europe, and it was a horrible something.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah, the Black Plague showed up. And for those towns that had the Black Plague that came through, roughly about 50% of Europe was wiped out. Mm-hmm. And again, we always, we kind of say, well, we've handled COVID, and COVID was certainly, as far as a disease goes in the modern era, COVID actually was pretty bad, with something like a 2% death rate. The bubonic plague at the time had like a 95% death rate. So it was like astronomical. Wow. If you caught it, you were going to die more than likely. Mm-hmm. So like 50% of Europe got wiped out. Here's the problem with that. Their way of life that they were practicing at that time was very well established. Each, from a societal standpoint, you had three tiers. One was, dare I say, the peasant group. They did a lot of the work. They did a lot of the production of food, yada, yada, yada. That was their goal. Mm-hmm. And then outside of that, there were two realms of security, of protection. One was protection from physical attacks. That's your knights. That's your soldiers. That's the people that are going to venture out. Anybody tries to attack their peasants, if you will, they were going to be protected by all those people that were, quote unquote, noble birth. Mm. And so the people got ultimately taxed to support those soldiers for that protection.
Right.
And then the other realm was the spiritual realm. You had a churchly realm, and that was to pray for your soul, to protect you spiritually, so you weren't going to be attacked by demons or anything else, right?
Yes.
This was the whole point. Now, what happened was this. Basically, this 3-tier system kind of worked itself out to where the taxes more than supported the spiritual care. They lived, I don't want to say poverty, but a lot of them lived and, they didn't get a lot. They were not necessarily independently wealthy by any stretch. We can talk about Rome being incredibly wealthy, but let's face it, like, this is not Rome. Like, these are the people in the monasteries and whatnot that are out in the country lands. Mm-hmm. The noble people got wealthy, and because of that wealth, they could actually do things. They could actually influence things and hold lots of power because they were able to gain money, and so on and so forth. But what happened is that
Sorry.
Europe...
Sorry, went down the wrong pipe. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
You're really just laughing at the Black Death.
Yeah, the Black Death makes me laugh.
You were laughing so hard you coughed.
Yeah. Sorry. Ugh.
But no, so what happened though is like it wiped out all these people, and it wiped across the board pretty evenly, and all of a sudden these peasants, especially these peasants, had extra land. I mean, imagine you have, 2 farmers, and each farmer has 4 cows, right? Well, 50%, one of them's getting wiped out. Now all of a sudden you got one farmer that has 8 cows.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And he has twice the allotted land.
Oh, that's okay.
And so he has extra land. He has extra livestock. He has extra everything. And on top of that, get this, he also now has extra income. And he has extra money.
Oh, yeah.
And for the first time in a long time, and on top of that, the noblemen now have half. Mm-hmm. They're struggling to protect. The church took a pretty good size hit as well. But those two, it's not like, they get to double up on their salary.
Yeah.
No, they still, because it's a tax issue, they still kind of get the same salary, but the peasants actually doubled their salary.
Interesting. Okay.
In like 2 years.
Yeah.
And so you started to see a change of status, but you also see people that are saying like, well, okay, I need to get out of this peasant's world. I got all this money, or yada, yada, or however it all works out. And so all of a sudden you see the birth of a merchant class. A merchant class that was, as before, never really seen before. Mm-hmm. Before you had people that sold and peddled goods, but, most of them didn't reach these high levels. But because there was so much stuff that was needed, all of a sudden you see this merchant class arise. And what's really fascinating is a lot of them started to dress like the nobles. The nobles even started to pass laws in certain places to basically say that merchants couldn't dress like this.
Oh, interesting.
Just because they wanted to be able to distinguish themselves, the nobles from the merchants, and the merchants were getting rather wealthy. But also along the way with this, you saw a lot of different things. First of all, you see the birth of the Renaissance. Because all of a sudden people are going to have to think outside of the box in a way that they've never had. Before it was always just like, we're going to do the same thing that my dad did and my grandpa and so on and so forth. Yeah. Now all of a sudden you see people going, well, I don't have to do that. I can actually go out and do something. I got extra income.
Yeah.
I can venture out and actually go do other things. And then they, do this merchant activity. They gain wage. They do all this other stuff. And on top of that, people started to think differently. And you see the birth of rationalism. You see the birth of the Renaissance. You see the birth of the printing press, which revolutionized the way books, letters, everything was done. Yeah. Because everything before that was all handwritten.
Right.
But the other part of that is you saw the birth of a bunch of new laws.
Yeah.
And figuring out those laws was a real pain in the neck. Because even the societies as a whole didn't quite know what to do with all these laws.
Yeah.
One fair group of these guys were actually in the copper industry. right? This was a pretty new industry for that age.
Okay.
And that industry faced a lot of legal issues. A lot of people wanted to take their wealth away. And so out of that comes this one guy. He's a miner. Well, not a miner, but he's in the copper industry. And he's in Germany. And he has a son. And his son is a fairly smart fellow. Went through all the schooling, was looking like he was going to do a college level thing. And the father has an idea. And here's the idea. The idea is that if he sends his son to basically go to law school, he will have a lawyer in house. Now he doesn't have to pay for all that legal expert, and the family business can make more money. And so he works up, gets all his extra money, and he eventually, when his son gets old enough, he sends him to law school. Even buys him one of this really expensive books on legal issues and so on and so forth.
Right.
Well, nobody's 100% sure what happened. The fun story is that he comes home one day, and on his way back, he there's a lightning storm, and he basically prays to a saint and says, "Hey, if you'll protect me, I'll become a monk." Now, that might be true, but the other part that is also oftentimes neglected to be said is, why did he go home in the middle of a semester anyway?
Yeah.
It seems like he had something really important to talk over with his parents. So important. So important it was that he actually traveled all the way home to talk to his mom and dad. And it's like, it might have been that he was already thinking about going into the monastery, becoming a monk.
Yeah.
And maybe he did it, maybe the lightning storm just kind of did him in, like he finally said, okay, fine, I'll do it. Right. But whatever the reason, Martin Luther entered into the Black Cloister Monastery.
Oh.
And basically, Luther was, in the way Luther thought, again, very influenced by the Renaissance and the rationalistic movements, but also realizing that there were certain gaps and certain holes. And admittedly, over the years, it started before the Crusades. It actually started with a couple different things, but certain corruptions had begun to creep into the church.
Wow.
And it didn't help that not everybody had their own Bible. Not everybody could read. You're kind of at the mercy of your priest. And, a lot of this stuff was done in Latin. And, there's lots of little things here and there. But a lot of very false ideas had begun to creep into church. The type of person Luther was is he would actually sit like sometimes up to 6 hours in a confessional booth, confessing his sins to his confessor. And it was very frustrating for a lot of people that were his confessors. He kind of irritated them. But by and large, this was Luther's life. They kept pushing him along, get more education. He eventually becomes a doctor of the church, has his doctorate. And that was like how they handled him. Every time he came up with more questions, they're like, well, just go get more degrees. Go do this, go do that. Oh, go teach, whatever. Now, in the midst of that, and I can't remember all the names, but basically the Sistine Chapel was actually being built. And the Pope needed money. And there was another prince that also needed money. And so they worked out a deal. And basically they had a couple different exchanges of money. And the exchange was done in such a way that indulgences... Now, an indulgence was basically a get to heaven free card. Now, not entirely. Sometimes
pay your way to heaven.
Sometimes these things are misconstrued. Catholics believed, and actually I think they still believe, at least the diehard Catholics do. They still believe that if you were a faithful Christian, but you weren't quite perfect, when you died, you'd go to purgatory. Now, depending on how many of your sins you had to purge out of you, that's where the term comes from, you could be in purgatory for quite a while. An indulgence was basically a piece of paper that said that the Pope was going to pray specifically for your loved one to spring them out of purgatory, to kind of loosen that. But now here's the thing, though. It's like, even from the Catholic mind, purgatory didn't work. If you were like a diehard Satanist, like, no, you were going to burn in hell. Like the Pope not going to do nothing for you, right?
Right.
You know, the idea was that you were a faithful Christian who happened to be in purgatory.
Right.
But this would, you know, sometimes these people had, you know, millions of years to spend in purgatory, and it's like, okay, well, this will help, you know, maybe make that a little faster.
Right.
But they were never supposed to be sold in Wittenberg. But that was part of the deal, is that they could actually sell the indulgences in Wittenberg.
Now, Wittenberg is where?
It is in Germany.
Germany, okay.
Luther, being a college professor, he wanted to have a little lively college debate. And so he created points of debate. The points of debate were called theses, and there were 95 of them. Now, where you would usually post things would be usually on the church door. Not always on the church door. There is a little bit of debate about that, but whatever, church door. Church door in Wittenberg is where you would post these things. The big debate was over indulgences, mainly.
Right, okay.
Not entirely, but mainly over indulgences. Their efficacy, you know, where are they biblically, all that kind of stuff. A group, a German anarchist group, actually took them down, translated them into German, and reposted them.
Oh.
And it was the spark. It was the spark that ignited a fire.
Because now everybody could read it? Or
more people could read it. And, you know, they didn't take it as good collegiate debate. They took it as, this is a smackdown against indulgences. We don't have to buy them. Yeah. And so this guy named Tetzel goes into Wittenberg to sell them, and he's practically chased out. Like, I mean, people are fired up. You know, the Catholic Church is ripping us off, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it is
Twisted Sisters played in the background.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. The Catholic Church kind of, you know, at the time, this was just like the church, right? Like, this is everywhere. They kind of try to handle it by, you know, at first kind of calling Luther to repentance. Yeah. But he's like, okay, show me where I messed up. Like, you know, just like, show me where I messed up. It's okay. You know, I'll repent, but show me where I messed up. Right. You know, and they didn't do it. And a year later, they call him to debate, or at least what Luther thinks is a debate. He developed something called the Heidelberg Disputation, where he basically reinforces his theology, and it goes even deeper, and people really get outraged. Oh. But a lot of the priests that are there and the monks that are there actually start buying into it. They're like, hey, this is actually pretty good stuff. Oh. You know, Luther's not such an idiot after all, kind of thing.
Yeah. He's got some good points.
But anyway, you know, like, and I realize it's already kind of a long story long, but basically this stuff, this spark is like a flame that just goes through Europe. It just like tears through Europe. And people begin to really critique and evaluate the Church of Rome, the Catholic Church. And there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, you know, I could talk all night just about his life story, but basically what it comes down to is eventually they're going to excommunicate Luther. Okay. And certain people actually start protesting this. And so that group is then referred to as Protestants. Oh, okay. Because they are protesting. So Protestants are those that protest.
I mean, now in Protestants, that's I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Protestant kind of a reference to pretty much anybody who is not Catholic? A Christian who's not Catholic, or am I wrong on that?
They are not Catholic, nor are they Greek Orthodox.
Okay. So they're...
Yeah, you kind of got to add at least that one caveat.
Okay. But I mean...
other churches might not consider themselves... you know, certain Arminian groups. I don't know about the Anglican groups, whether they consider themselves Protestant or not. That would be a much different topic. But a group of people that were following basically Luther's theology eventually began to call themselves Lutherans. Now, Luther actually hated that name.
Yeah.
He actually despised it. But hey, whatever, it stuck. And that's kind of the birth narrative of the Lutheran Church. Now, there's a lot of history that goes into there.
Right. Well, see, but I didn't know anything about what do you call them again? The whole kind of paying your way to be.
Oh, indulgences.
Indulgences.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that had anything. I didn't even know that had anything to do with it myself. So I mean,
what I always personally find is funny is that every year I feel like there's some good, well-meaning Lutheran.
Yeah.
Who's like, you know what? I think it's really good. I'm going to read the 95 Theses.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like down with indulgences.
Oh, no.
And what's really funny is everybody forgets. So now here's the thing.
It's in German, people.
No.
Oh, sorry. No.
No, even the English translation.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
But he nailed the 95 Theses to the door on October 31st, 1517.
Yeah.
At least so says legend. That's why a Reformation Sunday is always October 31st or the last Sunday in October. And that's like the spark that did it, right?
Right.
But what's really funny is a lot of people forget that Luther was like insanely Catholic at that time.
Okay.
Like insanely Catholic.
Yeah.
He critiques the church quite a bit later.
Right. He had lots of kids too.
Yeah, well, later he was a monk. He wasn't married.
Oh, sorry. Never mind. My bad. I'm so sorry.
He does get married later, though. Don't worry. To a nun, of all things. Anyway.
Wow. Whoa. That's got to be controversial.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
But what's super funny is everybody's like, yeah, I'm going to read the 95 Theses, and then all of a sudden they find like all this stuff talking about, Holy Mother Mary and, talking, kind of addressing the Pope saying, I know you don't know this is going on, but let's talk about this. It's like he's very Catholic. He's still very, very Catholic. He changes later, but like right then and there, 1517 October, he is still very Catholic.
Right.
He is like the poster child for Catholicism.
That's interesting. Yeah. So he does. Yeah, he doesn't even know. I'm sorry, that's not the right way to say that. But it's like he's starting this whole thing, but he doesn't. Does he not? He doesn't realize that he's starting like a whole branch off.
Oh yeah, he has no clue. He has no clue.
He's like, I just thought we should talk about it.
Yeah, kind of.
This is getting out of hand, guys.
And again, but he's the whole time he's kind of going, okay, obviously you guys keep saying I'm wrong. Where am I wrong?
Yeah.
And they just can't do it. There are some people that eventually will out debate Luther, but even and then it's like they're crafty with words. They're really good at debating, but they're still not necessarily really proving him wrong.
Yeah.
They're just proving that they have better, more their fancy words, this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, fascinating history throughout this whole thing, because Luther kind of becomes the first real what we would consider celebrity. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. If you were a prince or a noble or whatever, okay, yeah, you were famous in that, just by your sheer land holdings, people knew you. Mm-hmm. But nobody had ever seen somebody come from the peasant class and get to the level that Luther got to. Mm. He was the first truly viral person, from a historical standpoint. And he was viral. I mean, and that was something that, if you ever read a biography of Luther, he really struggled with because nobody had ever had fame like that. One of the big things that a lot of people hold against him is the peasants' revolt. And what happened in the Peasants' Revolt is basically the peasants were being mistreated. And again, they didn't want to be, they felt like they were being held down. And the lords of the land kind of wanted to put a stop to it. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of asked Luther. And Luther, for what it was worth, Luther was basically saying, hey, you shouldn't be mistreating them. but they are also obligated to be your servants because that is the job and the title that they have. So you need to question them and see if, if they are acting as your servants or whatever, but if they're refusing to act as your servants, like, this is war, you go to war. But think the peasants don't have weapons, they don't have training, they don't have, all the stuff the soldiers do. And so what the lords end up doing is they end up like going out and going, do you follow me? And then before they can answer, they just cut them down. Like something like 186,000 peasants got killed.
Oh, jeez.
And most of it's pinned at the feet of Luther. Right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's pinned on Luther because they're like, well, Luther gave him permission to cut him down. And it's like, well, but again, this is something that Luther had never reckoned with. If somebody asks your opinion about something, you don't usually go, yeah, well, they're going to kill hundreds of thousands of people. Like, but that's exactly what was going on with Luther in his life.
Yeah,
like he was just insanely viral, insanely quotable. People were writing down everything he said. He had two guys that were like following him towards the end of his life, just following him around, just writing everything down, just everything.
Oh, wow.
It was insane.
That is like the first viral person. Then.
Yeah.
Because nowadays we have like these celebrities who they quite literally pay someone to just walk around and film them all day. And then they take clips of them giving some random person off the street advice and they put that into a YouTube short or whatever for 40 seconds. And, there's your clip, and they'll get hundreds of those a day or whatever. So that's interesting. People are just, walking around, following them and documenting everything. That's wow.
Yeah. And so, I have Luther's works. Like Luther wrote a lot, and I have his works, the American edition, which is, I think they got like 60 or 70 volumes out now. Like they have, so they started with 55 volumes. And then about 10 years ago or so, they started publishing new volumes. And then
What's
a lot
in
of
the new volumes. Exactly.
Well, it's more stuff.
Yeah.
So this is what I always tell people. Like, so we have like, say 65 volumes right now, maybe 70. That's the American edition. That's the English edition. The German edition, called the Waymeyer edition, has 119 volumes.
Oh, wow.
So they got a lot of stuff to go through. They got a lot of stuff.
Wow. Interesting.
They're not there yet, but they're making it. They're making their headway.
So you say these are like collections of his writings and stuff kind of put together. What is there a name for it besides just like his works, or is there any like I don't know? See, I don't even really know because I didn't grow up Lutheran.
Yeah,
I'm sure everybody at church at St. John's have read his works.
Yes, all of them.
I'm sure
all 70 volumes.
So you're all lucky because I haven't. But that's what I just wonder when like, are there like does he write books like with a title, or does he wrote like sort of like these are my thoughts and I'm writing this kind of thing down?
That's a fair question. First of all, no, most people have not read Luther's works.
Yeah, I was kind of being sarcastic.
I realize that, but just in case anybody missed the joke.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, most people will read like, say, Luther's Small Catechism.
Okay.
In their training and upbringing and all that kind of stuff, but they won't necessarily read a lot of Luther's stuff.
Okay.
But that being said, like it falls into several categories of his writings. First of all, what Luther would do, and the way the printing press worked is not like, people back in the day, they didn't really write a lot of books. And part of the reason for that was, again, prior to the printing press, which came out in the mid 1400s, like, again, paper was expensive. Printing, everything was handwritten. Like writing a book was a monumental task.
Yeah.
I mean, even when they would like copy these Bibles out, usually it was one person reading the Bible and then like several students writing it down.
Yeah, right.
So that they could have their own personal Bible kind of thing. The printing press changed all of that.
Right.
They found more efficient and effective ways to create and sustain paper and all that kind of stuff. But this was not like, it's not like overnight they have big paper factories. Like, they had to work their way up to it. And so a lot of times what was being released were these tracts, like they'd be
singles.
They'd be kind of the equivalent of like a pamphlet almost.
Oh, okay.
Some of them might have been a little bit longer, but a lot of them were fairly short. And they were printed fairly quickly, you know.
It's like sort of like a newspaper article?
Almost,
sort of
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, almost like a newspaper article. That's actually a very apt description. And so they were being released. Now, he did have some longer works. He has one book in particular that was that he really did like was even toward the end of his life. He was like, this is one of my favorites. And it's basically called The Bondage of the Will, usually. And it's his argument with a man by the name of Desiderius Erasmus.
Okay.
So,
wow, that's a name.
There it is.
What'd you just say?
Desiderius Erasmus.
Desiderius Erasmus.
He was a humanist of the time.
He was something. It sounds
yeah,
like.
he was something. Let me tell you. Anyway,
Desiderius, man.
But that was one of his longer works. And he had a few others here and there. But so some of those were his tracts. A lot of them were like lectures. So he taught. And so a lot of what they've done over the years is they've found like people's lecture notes.
Oh,
because people were writing down again his entire lecture.
Right. Interesting.
And so these come off, they almost look like commentaries, you know.
Yeah.
Like here, let's talk about, you know, this verse from Exodus 2, you know. And like so you have his lecture there.
So okay, sorry. Go on.
And so those are almost like commentaries.
Okay.
You also have his sermons. I don't think we have all of his sermons. He actually preached quite a bit, sometimes as much as once or twice a day. Different sermons.
Wow.
So not just Sunday church, like everyday church.
Right.
Like so
they used to have church like every day in some places. Yeah.
So you have I have a large amount of his sermons, but I guarantee you I don't have all of them. And then you also have something known as the sermon postils. Are the church postils.
Okay.
Now what those are actually things that Luther wrote specifically for pastors so that it would help them create and craft sermons.
Oh, okay.
It's not quite sermon outlines. It's a little bit more detailed than that. But it's stuff that he wrote so that the church pastors of the age would have, because a lot of these guys were not necessarily the greatest educated. And so he tried to create helps. And like even the catechism and the large catechism, that's what that's all about, is to give you help.
Gotcha. Interesting.
I will not say that is all his writing. He has other types as well, but those are kind of like the core elements.
Yeah. So when you crack open your volume of Luther's writings, is it kind of just like a crazy, like one thing to another? Like, do they organize it in a way that like this is?
Oh yeah, for sure they do.
I mean, yeah. So, but it's not. I feel like it's such a strange. With the way there's so many different ways and things he wrote and different things that I just wonder what it's like reading through that, if it's very like seems sporadic, like, okay, we're talking about this subject, now we're talking about this, or they try to go like everything he's ever talked about, like worship or something, like how to worship is we're going to put it all in this section.
Yeah, there is actually a volume that's dedicated to his like worship tracks.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah.
That's
and so like, so for instance, a lot of times, like for instance, his Genesis lectures, that's like the first 6-7 volumes of Luther's works.
Okay.
So like, that's all just Genesis. And like I said, it comes off almost like a commentary.
Yeah.
And you're reading his lectures, but it's actually separated out like verse by verse and so on and so forth. So
if he lived today, it would be like these YouTube videos where they're like, 83 Easter eggs you missed in the new Star Wars movie or something. He'd be like, here's everything you missed in the book of Genesis. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you, like early on in ministry, you know, so again, you come out like of seminary, you have all this education, you read all these books, yada, yada, yada. We read so much about Luther. We didn't read necessarily a lot of Luther. Now, that doesn't mean we didn't read any Luther. We did. We read some, but just not a ton. And so whenever I first got out of seminary, one of the first things I did in my ministry was I read the Genesis commentary, like I said, the first 6-7 volumes.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie to you, Casey. It changed my life.
Really?
It literally changed my life. Like, you know, I mean, again, it's one of those things like we kind of... I guess I don't know how else to put this, but like, you know, he was so powerful for his day, and we assume that because it was so long ago, it's lost its potency. It really hasn't.
Yeah.
Luther, I mean, don't get me wrong, again, and I know we've talked about this, like his tract on the Jews and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he has.
Like, he is not perfect. He is not like Saint Luther the Great who did nothing wrong. Luther did all kinds of things wrong. He would be the first to admit it and first to say it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that man, when it comes to like exegeting the text and when it comes to actually like processing and going things through, I'm not joking. His Genesis commentary changed my life. Like, I walked into it going, I'm super smart and I'm a seminary student. I walked out of there going, I'm an idiot. And this man knows way more than I, it is truly amazing. Like,
that's interesting. Yeah.
I always say like the Genesis commentary is one of those where like, if you ever happen to be around, like ask me about it. I'll open up one of the commentaries, I'll look at a few pages and I'll read you like some of his thoughts on something in Genesis. And you'll go, that's crazy. No, that's insane.
Yeah.
But then if I'm smart enough, I'll actually go, okay, but here's Luther's logic. And like, after you walk through his logic, you'll end up going, oh yeah, there's no way. It has to be that.
Interesting.
Like, it has to be that.
Yeah.
It took you 4 volumes to get to that point, but like, it has to be that. That has to be correct.
Once again, this is so relatable to real life, because how many times have you heard a TV show where they're like, you got to watch the show. It changed my life. Season 8 is really where it starts taking off. And you're like, season 8? I can go through 8. Anyway, that's Volume 4 is when things you really start to feel like, wow, things.
But see, that's the thing that's the thing with Luther. Like it's not like, oh, this volume this really takes off. That's not it at all.
Yeah.
What it is he is unpacking the text and he's making small little assessments, and he's saying, well, here's this. I bet you that's what's going on. And you go, oh, okay, And then he goes, well, here's this, and I bet you that's probably what's going on. Oh, okay. Yeah. But all the time, this stuff starts building up.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you realize, like, oh, I get it now. That, yeah, it kind of has to be,
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you go, well, now that, and then you kind of look at it, you go, now that makes a lot more sense. All of a sudden this text makes a lot more sense. One of my absolute favorites, and this one's really early on, so it's easy to follow the logic.
Yeah.
Is the story of Cain and Abel. Right here you have the story of Cain and Abel.
Right.
And Cain and Abel both bring their stuff to the Lord, and God accepts Abel's and rejects Cain's, and Cain gets really mad and kills his brother. And you're kind of going, well, that's dumb.
Yeah.
Like okay. Look, I mean, I have a brother, and if God accepted something from my brother but didn't mine, I'd probably go, well, I should probably do better next time. Like, even if it happened over and over again, I'd be a little upset, a little frustrated, but not like I'm going to take a stone and murder him.
Well, but let's say, has your brother read all of Luther's work or Luther's work? See, so I mean, come on. At some point, you probably feel a little like, I've read so much. I've done so much homework.
Yeah. Well, maybe. Maybe.
Well, maybe.
But here's the part of it that really I absolutely love.
Yeah.
So God creates, then he creates the Garden of Eden, then he creates Adam. Adam's the word bearer. That's his job. That's his title. That's what he does. Then Eve, and obviously the sin, the serpent, and all that kind of stuff. And then God has this, like, the first prophecy of the coming of Jesus. Okay. And it's like, your offspring will he'll strike, the snake is going to strike his heel, but he's going to crush his head. And it's like the first prophecy of Jesus, right? Well, like 2 verses later, you have the birth of Cain. And all of a sudden Eve holds up Cain and she goes, finally, a servant, finally, and a male offspring has been born.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, well, that's great, but like, that's a little bit much for, the offspring of a child. But you understand that's Cain. And if you understand that the words before it were the prophecy that we're like, because we're looking at it hindsight, we're going, oh, well, that's Jesus. Like, Not to Eve, it's not.
Yeah.
Eve doesn't know who it is.
Right.
Eve thinks it's her offspring. And guess what? Next couple verses, she has an offspring. And that offspring is Cain.
Ah.
Now imagine you're raised as Cain. You're the chosen one. You're the one that's going to kill Satan. You're the one that's going to redeem the very people of God. Your dad's waiting on you. Your mom's waiting on you. Everybody's waiting on you. And this little pipsqueak Abel comes along. And sure, he's great. He's a good guy, but he's no Cain.
Right.
Cain is the servant. Cain is the offspring of Eve. Cain is the chosen child. He is the one that's going to do it all.
Interesting.
And imagine that's your whole life.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine you grow up and that's what you're told. And Abel is told, you know what, you're great, but you're no Cain. And Cain is raised saying, you know, you're the greatest, you're awesome, you're going to redeem the people, you're going to do. And then all of a sudden you take your sacrifices to the Lord, and all of a sudden your sacrifices, Cain's sacrifices, are rejected, and Abel's are accepted.
Yeah, interesting.
And all of a sudden Cain's like, no, like that's not the way this goes.
Yeah.
He's not the one that's going to redeem the people. I got to take him out because I got to be the one redeeming the people. And so now all of a sudden all the pieces start to fit together.
Yeah.
You know, and once you understand that, you're like, oh, okay. And you're like, okay, well, so now, but here's the other part. Now you got Cain, and Cain is sent away, right? He's no longer there. And what does Cain have? What does Cain have that you've probably never thought about before? Cain has now a twisted view of God's word.
Okay.
And he is sent out. He is sent out. And all of a sudden, now we have Seth born.
Okay.
And so now all of a sudden we have this weird dualism, right? And you have the word of God with Adam, Eve, Seth, and the children. Mm-hmm. And you have the false word leaving with Cain. Now, if you follow that trajectory, you know, a little bit down the road, what do you get? You get Noah and the ark. And what do you get? You get one small group who have the word of God, who are holding secure. And you have the whole world that has this like twisted word. Mm-hmm. And you go, well, where'd that twisted word come from? I mean, shouldn't they all? Well, you had Cain going out.
Interesting. So
and Cain ventured out.
Interesting. So he kind of poisoned the well, so to say. That is interesting because I've never really thought about it, honestly. It's probably terrible. I probably should have thought about it or put.
I never thought about it. I was out of seminary. I was reading Luther, going, "Oh my gosh,
that's good." Yeah, I never even thought about the fact of him feeling like he was the chosen one.
Yeah,
you know, and it's a great way to tie in mothers, by the way.
Yeah, right.
It's good.
Happy Mother's Day, everybody.
Happy Mother's Day.
Belated, but yeah.
Be careful about telling your child they're the chosen one.
Yeah, do not tell them they're going to redeem the world.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That's very, very interesting to think about. Oh, man, there's so much. I'm sure there's so much. Now, I really do now. I feel like I really got to read. You said he has some stuff on worship.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I need to go read that because that'd be very interesting to see what exactly his thoughts were on that, especially with, being that's what I doing. That is really.
But like I said, and think that's just like the first couple chapters.
Yeah,
it keeps going.
Yeah,
and like Luther tracks it all along, and you'll walk away with a completely different view of Genesis.
Yeah. Well, it definitely. Yeah.
But Genesis will also make a lot more sense.
Right.
And then on top of that, and this is the other part that I always say, like one of the things that Luther really does drive home throughout the text, and it's all over Genesis, so it's all over the Bible, but it's like he emphasizes over and over again just how small this group is. Mm-hmm. Right? Like if you ever feel like, oh man, church attendance is down, things are rough, and it's like, yeah, well, Noah had 8 people.
Yeah.
And after the flood, one of those 8 was a bad seed. So, I mean, he had 7.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, look, we're not doing so bad. It's like, can we do better? Sure. Absolutely.
Right.
Proclaim God's word. Absolutely. But like, we got more than 7 people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, you think about it, it happens over and over and over again. Like there's this like real small number, real small amount.
Yeah. That's very interesting. I'm blown away by that, honestly.
Yeah.
So you say they have these volumes Is this something like, I mean, online, you can type in any Bible verse, it pops up with like, oh, there's, you can read the Bible online or listen to it online or whatever. Are these, I don't even know. I've never looked up like his works. Like, do you know, are they online or or do you have hard copies of all of them yourself?
So I have both the hard copy and the digital copy. Okay. But the digital copy, I only have 55 volumes. I don't have the newer volumes.
Yeah.
The physical copy, I have all the volumes.
Okay.
Because I'm part of the subscription program, so I get like one a year, I think, or something like that, of the new ones.
Now, see, that's what we need. If we ever start doing paid ads or an ad, we should start doing. Have you gotten are you subscribed to the Lutheran Works volume package?
That's right. They come out with a new one about once a year. And it is run through CPH. Now, the original ones, I think they were CPH. I don't know if CPH still sells them. But they are still sold online. You can still buy hard copies of all the volumes. From a digital standpoint, you can buy them out of, I can't remember if CPH sells them again, but I do know that you can buy them on Logos. So Logos is a premier Bible software. I mean, again, they are expensive. They're like $300 for the 55 volume set digitally.
It's like buying Britannica.
Yeah, right. But I mean, that's still cheaper than the hard copies. Like, I don't even know how much. I got a great deal on them whenever I got it. I got them when I was in college. There's a pastor that was downsizing his library.
Oh, nice.
I think I ended up paying $400 for them. Like that's a deal. That was like a steal. It still probably is a steal. So. Yeah.
Got to get those deals while they last,
That's right.
That's it. That's really interesting. All right. Well, I think we'll have to revisit some of this again.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I really didn't know much about, his works at all, being someone who didn't grow up.
Oh, sure.
In the Lutheran Church. So I didn't even know. And honestly, I didn't know how that plays into, like preaching or what, how people base off of that, and how much they follow his works. And I know obviously it's Lutherans, but I didn't know how that factors in.
So like I always say like one of the things that I always kind of like to whenever I start like a biography or something of Luther, like one of the things I do tell people is like most people have no idea how influential not only Luther was, but Luther still is. Yeah. You've probably heard the expression, you catch more flies with honey. That's a Lutheran thing. Luther radically changed the way we view education. A lot of our education books are basically extensions from what started with Luther. Because when Luther was around, like it was like beat the kid into submission, and then and Luther was like, no, we need to find better approaches and yada yada yada. Now again, did he have like modern day tactics? No, of course not. But like. A lot of the things and the wheels that he set in motion still influence us, to this day. Luther Luther did. He truly did revolutionize, Europe in a certain capacity, in a certain way, which is why, like, if you ever see like the 10 most influential people, like, in world history, Luther is almost always on that list. Yeah. Because Luther did. And the fact of the matter is that like we are still to this day reacting to a lot of what Luther set in motion.
Yeah. That's kind of mind blowing because I don't know. Obviously, it's like my whole life I've known Lutherans. Yeah. But I didn't know much about Luther himself besides the occasional, like misquoted quote of like, Martin Luther King Jr. said this.
Yeah.
Like, that was actually Martin Luther. Like, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. I'm very intrigued to see what he says about worship and stuff, and kind of because I don't know. I'd like to sort of see what am I doing, and what does he say about it? Because so we'll have to jump into that. But I think
we'll have to jump on in.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on, or you feel we wrap that up, or do you
I think again at this time I think we could probably wrap that up. We're welcome to visit it again and again if you want. It
is a Lutheran podcast. So.
It is a Lutheran podcast. Yeah. There's lots of good biographies of Luther. My favorite one is got to be Kittel, or is it Kittelson? I can't remember. It's either Kittle or Kittleson. It's put out by CPH. They have it. I can't remember. Augsburg Press might have a copy of it as well. They have a revamped version. Years ago, in 2017, when we were celebrating 500 years, I did like a Bible class kind of thing where we went through the biography of Luther.
Oh, cool.
And that was the book I used. And that's a great one. It reads kind of like a novel. It's called Luther the Reformer. It's really good. But if you're kind of like me and you're like, well, I want like the best of the best, like the one that goes through everything. There's a series by a man by the name of Martin Brecht. Brecht, I think. Brecht, I think that's right. It's a 3-volume set, and it's about the most complete biography you can buy.
Oh, wow.
So.
Well, that's very interesting.
They got bright covers. One's orange, one's blue, one's yellow.
Ooh, that's very exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is. Really lightens up your bookshelf.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Wow. I like that. Well, we'll definitely dive more into this because I think there's a lot that we could get into. But I think as far as what time it is, I think it is time for
Church Chatter. Church Chatter. Oh man! Well, I think the two big things that are really coming up. Obviously, this coming Sunday we have our blanket ceremony.
Oh,
so
yes.
The big send off, and I don't know if it's really a big send off. But these. I dare I say, I don't want to call them kids. These youth that have grown up in the church, they're getting ready to do their next step. And it's one of those things. Like a lot of times when we say that, we're anticipating them going to college. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that's just not so anymore. And actually, I think that's actually a positive thing. And I know that sounds really funny for those of you that are going, "What? What do you mean?" Here's what I'm talking about. Like a lot of these kids. And again, I don't know. I haven't talked to all these kids, so I don't know what percentage or anything like that. But I do feel like there's a lot of people that go to college, and then we don't have people that go to trade school. And it's like there are certain benefits to trade school for sure. And so I know some of them are working in a trade, and I think that's actually really awesome. Mm-hmm. And so we shouldn't just assume everybody's going off to college. They are, but they are doing their next step, right? It's they're graduating high school, they're done with that part of their life, and now they're stepping forward. Whether that's to go work at a job, or whether it's to go to college, or whether it's to start training in a trade, whatever it happens to be, they are stepping forward to that next phase of life. Yeah. And so in the honor of that, we kind of do this blanket ceremony. Yeah. The parents come forward and all this, and we kind of talk about that idea of passing on the faith. Yeah. And so again, I think it's a really, really good thing.
Do most people, and this is going to sound silly to some people if they don't know, if they've never seen the blankets, but they really look quite gorgeous. Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're really nice.
Do people actually sleep with them, or is it so nice that it's I can't get that, come home after sweating all day working as an electrician or something out in the sun, and then I just throw that blanket on at night, it's going to get all gross. It's they look so nice.
Well, they are very nice blankets, and I think a lot of kids, use them in college and stuff like that, or, whatever it happens to be. I mean, again, it is a nice blanket, but it really does tie well with the ceremony.
Yeah, so it's a cool ceremony. Now, is that something is that just kind of is that I don't know, is that something that's a big tradition in Lutheran churches, or just because I don't know, I haven't heard a word about that at Our Savior. I don't know if
no, it is not necessarily a big thing everywhere. Some churches do it, some churches don't. Not all Lutherans do it. Churches that are outside of Lutheranism do it. They all kind of do their own little different. Believe it or not, most of the ties that I've personally found with it in my own reading have been actually through Faith Legacy, which we talked about earlier. Yeah. And so that program actually has this as part of their milestone ministry. Oh, cool.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, well, I wondered if that's a big thing for everybody, or if that's...
No, again, there are certain things that are Lutherans all do this, and then there's stuff like that. It's no, some do, some don't, but some Presbyterians do, and some Baptists do, and, so on and so forth. So it's not necessarily a bad program. Again, maybe it needs to be updated a little bit in terms of some of their videos and stuff, but it's all good. Yeah. It's all good. Good old Faith Legacy. I love it. The other big thing coming up, and again, this is why we have no competition clauses, I think. That's right. VBS is coming. That's right. June 9th. June 9th, we'll have a guest pastor, Pastor Kevin Biltman. And then we'll have the beginning of our VBS over at Good Shepherd Lutheran School. Mm-hmm. We're looking forward to that. It's going to be exciting. It also means summer's here. Yay! Yay. So anyway, so we're definitely looking forward to that. It's coming. Boy, summer's coming so fast already.
Yeah. Oh, it's almost here.
I know. And then it's going to be gone. Oh, no. But anyway, whatever. I'll save that for later. But so we look forward to that. Going to see some more information coming out about that. I already received a couple emails with like some registration forms and stuff. So, hey, look for that. Look for that here coming up real soon. It's awesome. I can't wait. I love VBS. Yeah. It's a fun time. It's a fun time. So anyway, those are kind of like the big things going on right now. I mean, again, we got other stuff going on here and there, but I'm just thinking like, well, the week after that, we got Labor Day. I'm going to be traveling. I gotta go to my niece's wedding. We'll have graduation at Good Shepherd Lutheran School on the 30th. And then I actually got to be in Herman, Missouri on the 31st for a wedding.
For your niece's wedding?
For my niece. My niece is getting married.
My gosh, how old's your niece?
What is she?
Sorry.
Yeah, I put you on the spot. Well, I know. Now I'm thinking, I'm like, what is she, like 26, 27?
Aren't you the oldest?
No, my sister is the oldest.
Oh, never mind. Sorry. Okay.
No. My sister is the oldest.
I hope this is a compliment, but you seem too young to have a niece getting married to me. You seem so, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's exciting. That's a very exciting thing. So.
Oh, it is. It's going to be super exciting.
Going back to Missouri?
Yep.
Missouri?
Well, I'm going back to Missouri, and it's to Herman, Missouri, actually.
Herman.
I think the wedding is actually at a winery. I'm not sure.
Oh, exciting.
I think so. I'm not sure.
Now, do you have to bring your own wine being a pastor? or you're free range?
I'm just free range.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Anyway, but yeah, so I'll be going down, and it's just a quick trip. So I'll be going down and coming back like on that Saturday, I guess. But
that's exciting.
But it is exciting. It's a wedding we've been kind of looking forward to for a long time. So
are you officiating?
I am not.
Does that offend you?
No, actually, I'm thankful for that. This is one of those things. Like, and we should actually, at some other podcast time, we'll have to talk about this a little bit more. But like in truth, because a lot of people think that, okay, I'm a pastor, so I want to do everything for my family, and actually, it's kind of the exact opposite. So on Confirmation Sunday, which was not this Sunday, but the one before, I actually got to step down. And Pastor Ron Miller, said the blessing over my daughter. And I can't tell you how thankful I was for that. Yeah. Like, to have that opportunity to just stand there and be dad,
Yes. Yeah.
Like, not a pastor, not doing this, not doing that, but just to be dad, for a minute. And that is so awesome. And so even with this, I'm going to this wedding, I am not officiating. I'm going to sit there and I am going to just celebrate with my family. And
that's nice. Yeah.
I think that's going to be pretty awesome. I'm super excited.
I will be honest, whenever I hear about anybody getting married, a friend of mine or someone I know, and they don't call me for my band to play at their wedding, I am greatly offended. But besides that, do you judge the person officiating? Do you judge them at all? Or is it hard to not have your pastoral cap on, so to say? Or
it's always hard, especially if they're going to preach a sermon or a homily. There's definitely some critiquing going on. Never intentional.
You can't
never
help
intentional.
It,
But that being said, I mean, again, and I don't know who she has. I don't know who's going to be officiating this particular wedding, so I don't want to speak anything. But one of the things that I've noticed over the years is that a lot of times when you get too far outside of the church realm, a lot of these guys, even if they do weddings for a living, they really don't understand what they're doing. If that makes any sense. They understand the legal aspect, they understand the court aspect. They might even have a liturgy or two that they printed out and they're like, okay, I guess I'll just read this.
Yeah.
But they don't really understand why they're doing what they're doing. They're just reading words to them.
Yeah.
And I won't say I've noticed it a whole lot, because a lot of the weddings I do go to are in the church, and it's those guys get it. But there have been a few that I've been to.
Are you talking to these people who aren't necessarily pastors, like, because anybody can get, like certified.
And to be honest with you,
right?
I don't usually dig in that deep. I have no idea. I couldn't answer that.
Okay, I just wondered.
You're
not whispering next to the people next to you, being like, "Is this guy a pastor? He's studying liturgy, theology?" No, okay, I just wondered. Yeah.
Yeah, again, it's nothing like that. But I mean, it's just a lot of, again, it's one of those things. And again, we could talk about this at some other time. But like, there's actually a lot of within a service, any service, and especially in a wedding service, there's actually a lot of movements, and those movements actually have historical bearing and purpose.
Right.
But a lot of the people don't know that, and so what they do is the people just stand in front of them and they read this stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, well,
they don't have the nuance of like using the Lowry loop or anything like that. They don't understand.
I knew that the Lowry loop was going to come back to bite me, I'm afraid.
I really want to throw it in every episode.
Every episode be like a hidden thing. It's going to be like the pineapple in Psych.
Yeah. It's they don't understand the flow and how you just kind of read it, or whatever. That's why they should listen to this podcast.
That's why they should do that.
Yeah. Maybe is that would we have enough to talk about to do a whole episode about officiating weddings?
Maybe not necessarily officiating weddings, but we probably could have a podcast just in terms of movement within liturgy.
Yeah, okay.
and why you move and what you're actually doing and saying and so on and so forth.
Interesting. All right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, let's get to that. Well, that's exciting. Good things coming up. Good things coming up for you. Sounds like you'll have a good weekend. Just hanging out with the family.
Yep.
Free range wine will be nice.
Apparently, there's going to be free range wine. It's going to be awesome. So anyway, we got a lot of stuff, exciting things coming up. But yeah, like right off the top of my head, those are the big ones that I can think of. So yep. All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have for this fine and wonderful evening. So everybody that's joining us, everybody that's listening to us, thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next time. God's blessings. Bye.
Bye.